page 157 in the New Testament portion of your Pew Bible. If you would like to follow along, I will be reading from Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, not to think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but to think with sober judgment. Amen. A friend of mine was once working on an engineering project where they were capturing the methane that was produced by the decay of trash and garbage in a landfill. And they were collecting the methane and piping it to a potato processing plant where the methane was burned to heat their ovens and their burners and to make the product that they were making. And my friend just thought this was wonderful. What an earth-friendly idea to capture this methane rather than just having it all being released as a greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. More people need to know about this. But his enthusiasm was quickly squelched as it was made abundantly clear that everything that was going on was absolutely, positively secret. It would be a complete disaster for the company if word ever leaked out that their food products were being cooked using gases that came percolating up through the municipal dump. I mean, chemically, it was absolutely safe, but the perception in the minds of the public would be disastrous. They could imagine people stopping at the local fast food joint, ordering garbage fries. I mean, they could imagine all kinds of terrible things if word ever came out about their secret. Well, every year, the corporations of our country spend untold billions of dollars trying to define and shape what their brand means in the minds of the consumer. I mean, no company wants to leave it to chance that consumers will come up with their own ideas. So they tell us and they remind us over and over what their brand stands for. I mean, when somebody says a Maytag appliance, do you think more expensive? Perhaps, but that's not what they want you to think. They want you to connect Maytag with dependability. Oh, the dependability. We're the ones with the lonely servicemen who never get to go out on the job. Maybe when you're thinking about staples, you're thinking, oh, what a hassle it is to have to order all of our office supplies. Oh, no, that's the wrong thing to be thinking. They want you to say, staples. Oh, gee, that was easy, right? So what's the slogan? Let me ask you, what's the slogan for Dunkin' Donuts? America runs on Dunkin'. That's right. We're responsible for making the country it is. That's what gets everyone up and moving in the morning. How about Wheaties? Breakfast of Champions. Yeah, you watched the Olympics. You were amazed. We'll take credit for that because we're Wheaties. Mercedes-Benz. the best or nothing at all. Bounty paper towels. Yeah, the quicker picker-upper. Yeah, you've seen the commercials. Products like L'Oreal. They don't want you to think about how expensive it is. They want you saying, I'm worth it. You know, and Subway hoagies. They don't want you wondering if there's any tuna in their tuna salad. They want you to be thinking, eat fresh. Wow, it must be great. It's so fresh. Well, we have been programmed through the media and through our own experiences to associate certain characteristics with certain brand names. So, what do we associate with the word Christian? Christian. Well, the fact that you are here this morning suggests that you have positive associations and that you are willing to invest the time and the effort to come here this morning. And that's great. People who attend church with some regularity frequently feel somehow connected with God through the course of the service. They sometimes find themselves feeling challenged to change something in their lives. They often feel encouraged and supported by other believers and will sometimes say that this was the most significant and important experience of their week. Okay, all right, fair enough. But another important question then is, why are people not here? Well, some are not here because of COVID, of course. But the Barna group that specializes in surveys and understanding shifting social attitudes has been studying this question for years. And they have noted a significant shift that has taken place among younger people regarding their attitudes about Christians and Christianity. Now, to the best of my knowledge, the Barna group has never done a survey here in this church. So the results I'm about to share are not specifically about the Baptist church in the Great Valley, but are about Christian churches in general, all across our country. So, generally speaking, many feel that the church is out of touch and out of style. And the numbers indicate that younger people believe the church is simply irrelevant to the decisions that they have to make in their lives. Young adults who are not Christian have little trust in the Christian faith. They have little esteem for the lifestyle of those who claim to be followers of Christ, and they often feel judged and rejected by Christians, and then they, in turn, reject the church. They commonly think that Christians no longer represent what Jesus taught, and that the church in society is simply not what it was meant to be. A fellow from Mississippi put it this way: Christianity has become bloated with blind followers who would rather repeat slogans than actually feel true compassion and care for others. Christianity has become marketed and streamlined into a juggernaut of fear-mongering that has lost its heart. It's lost its soul. Whoa, ouch. Those are harsh words being spoken about our brand. Of course, we say, well, those people don't know us. They don't know our church. But when they hear the word Christians, These are the negative opinions that pop into their mind. The Barna research reveals some major themes to their criticism. These are not pleasant to consider, but we are honestly better off hearing them, honestly evaluating to what extent they could be true of us. The first negative opinion is that Christians are hypocritical. We claim that the Holy Scriptures were inspired by God, and because of that, we feel we have a pretty good bead on right and wrong. We try to build our lives on the solid rock of Jesus' teaching. Yes, there have been some television celebrity preachers who have transgressed and fallen, but it is actually the lifestyle and the failures of us ordinary Christians who seem to do more to contribute to this perception of hypocrisy. Some who claim to follow Christ actually prefer to worship the golden calf and pay far more attention to the stock market than they do to the Bible. Research indicates that even those claiming to be born again are just as likely in the last 30 days to have gambled, to visit pornographic websites, to take something that does not belong to them, to consult a medium or a psychic, to physically fight or verbally abuse someone, to have consumed enough alcohol to be legally drunk, to have used illegal drugs, to have said something that was not true, to have said mean things behind somebody's back, and to have gotten back at somebody else. And that's in just the last 30 days. As Christians, we may think that we are morally superior, but others will judge us by our actions when we are not in church. All have sinned, and Christians have too. So pretending that we are holier than thou only turns people off. Saying that you have your opinion and I have God's opinion does not give way to meaningful dialogue and discussion. An unwed mother told of becoming involved with the church, needing help on several different levels, but ultimately she left the church after feeling that she was always being pointed to and held up as being a bad example, a scarlet woman who would forever be paying the price for her iniquity. That's right, boys and girls. You don't want to become like her. You see what happens when sin has its way in your life. Of course, she left. Well, a second common criticism by younger people outside the church is that there is too much emphasis on being saved. They are suspicious about being manipulated by emotionally wrenching stories, carefully chosen music, the obvious choice between heaven and hell, the flood of other people making their way to the altar. In fact, more than 80% of non-church-going young adults have already attended a church, most for more than 3 months. 2/3 have had meaningful conversations with Christian friends about their faith. More than half have been specifically approached about becoming a Christian. Many have already made a decision to follow Christ, but that becomes separated from actually attending a church. They find that their simple decision to accept Jesus is not the magic wand it is sometimes advertised to be. Their alcoholic parents are still alcoholic. Their busted car is still busted. They don't get the big promotion they were praying for. The Christian walk is a long journey. It involves discipline and study and service and sacrifice and being accountable to others. Simply being saved is a beginning, but it's often too superficial to make a real life-changing difference. If we advertise it as a cure-all, many people are bound to be disappointed. Third criticism is that Christians are perceived as being anti-gay, anti-lesbian. There are verses in the Bible which cause people to come out against these lifestyles. Is there something in the Ten Commandments? No, not at all. Did Jesus have a lot to say on the subject? No. Jesus says nothing at all. But Jesus did come out and condemn a man divorcing his wife, except in the case of unfaithfulness, and said that anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. So how do we as Christians, as a church, respond to divorced people? Well, we try to understand the social context of Jesus' teachings. We acknowledge we have all sinned. We are all saved by grace. This situation may not be what God wanted, but forgiveness is the path forward. Would we allow a divorced man or a woman to remarry in our sanctuary? Of course we would. I can't imagine that we wouldn't. So when Christians choose to come down hard on the LGBTQ community, they end up sounding self-righteous and uncaring and hypocritical. How can the divorced be offered the velvet glove and gays be smacked with an iron fist? Well, a generation ago, the gay community was widely condemned and ridiculed by society, but with changing times, they are now widely accepted by the younger generation. They are friends. They are part of their community. A fourth criticism is that many Christians seem to be sheltered. When I was a kid, I had a Sunday school teacher who used to warn us that we'd better be careful about who we choose as friends, because one bad apple can ruin the whole basketful, and one bad friend can have a bad influence on any of us. And certainly there is truth in that. It also makes Christians sound very weak, very gullible, in need of protection. If we limit our associations to only other Christians, if we withdraw from society, how are we going to have any impact? I know some people want to live in gated communities to feel safe. Some Christians want to live in a sanitized Christian bubble where no one will harm them and there will be no temptation to lead them off in a different direction. But Jesus called us to be the salt of the earth. And yes, salt can be safely stored in a closed container up on a shelf somewhere, but salt can only do its job when it is taken out and spread around and in contact with other things. A final criticism, as perceived by the younger generation, is that Christians are way too political. When they hear the word Christian, They think of us as being motivated by some right-wing agenda and political goals. A Christian leader will appear on television and will seize upon a single issue and claim that this is the only issue that really matters to God, so your vote had better reflect that. And then they will go on and demonize anyone who has the audacity to disagree with them. But friends, we all know life is complicated. Politics are complicated. These things resist simple answers. The perception that Christianity represents a monolithic voting bloc is simply untrue, but that is frequently the perception. So as we draw to a close, I would again like to take a moment for meditation. And I would like you to meditate upon these three questions. Number one, are these the kinds of criticisms that people think of when they look at our church? Number two, do we as individuals or as a church behave in un-Christ-like ways that are honestly worthy of criticism? Number three, of course, if so, what should we do about it? Let's take a moment and ponder these things in our hearts.